Hello everyone, welcome back to Ansarkari. In today's newspaper session, we will be dealing with the important articles from the newspaper of 3rd October 2024. So today the important topics include, as the first one is mentioned right here, that is regarding the tribals. Further, we will also discuss regarding how the culture goes in hand with the gender fluidity. What are the various areas that we can look upon there? Further, we'll also discuss regarding Ladakh, that what is the special status that Ladakh is speaking. Seeking. Further, we'll discuss about the various types of diplomacies, and even in terms of the research or PhD, what are the educational reforms that can be there, that can exist, which can further enhance the whole system of selection. We will also discuss about the cyber physical hubs, like what exactly are these and how can they help, in what areas will they be helpful. Also, we'll discuss about the food safety laws in various states. So these are the top important articles for today. So the first one being package launch for scheme saturation in ST majority villages. So here again is regarding the scheduled tribes. क्या initiatives है that we are focusing upon, क्या initiatives are that we are thinking of so as to have a tribal empowerment, if that is the key term that we can use here. Further, already we have discussed regarding several schemes that were specifically meant for the PVTGs themselves, for that matter. And of them, we can also discuss about the PM Namaste scheme. Further, we also discuss about the PM Suraj, that is also related to tribals, and Janjatiya Suraksha Yojana, that is JSY, and also PM Janman, that is PM Janjati Maha Abhiyan. So here we have the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has launched the Dharti Aba Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan. So this is a package for basic scheme saturation in the tribal majority villages across 550 districts. तो झारखंड में मेजरली ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन के बारे में भी ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कि कैसे 8% ऑफ द टोटल ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन, टोटल पॉपुलेशन इन इंडिया इज दैट ऑफ ट्राइबल्स, 8%. फर्दर अगर हम देखते हैं कि कौन से स्टेट्स में ज्यादातर मिलती है, तो दे आर फाउंड इन मध्य प्रदेश, द मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ ट्राइब्स. एंड अगर हम कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स की बात करते हैं तो अगेन वी हैव भील, जो कि आर प्रेजेंट इन द रीजन ऑफ राजस्थान, गुजरात एटसेट्रा. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, etc. Further, we have the Santals, which are located in the areas such as Bihar, Jharkhand, इस side में. And we also have the Khasis, जो majorly northern belt को comprise करते हैं. Further, we also have Garo, etc. So these are all the major examples of the tribes. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में अगर हम बात करते हैं तो अगेन जो 5th और 6th शेड्यूल है, उसके अंडर दे आर included. They have provisions such as Tribal Advisory Council. So Dharti Aba is the name that many in Jharkhand used to refer to Birsa Munda, the anti-colonial tribal leader जिन्होंने resistance build करी थी against the British Empire in the late 19th century. Further, tribals की relation में अगर हम बात करते हैं तो current challenges, what are the current challenges that they are facing? So again, majorly they are regarding the land encroachment and the severe atrocities that they face, be it economically, or even rights to representation, etc. The existing poverty that they face, and majorly इसके regarding we can talk about the Forest Rights Act, कि कैसे उन पर जो कैसे उनके रिगार्डिंग वी कैन टॉक अबाउट द राइट्स दैट दे हैव विद रिगार्ड टू द फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस. फिर भी हमारे पास हम ट्राइफेड की भी बात करते हैं, विच इज स्पेसिफिकली फॉर द tribal cooperatives, ki how they can sell and get the well economic values for the produce as well. These are majorly the points regarding the tribals. Further, we have women dhakis find their own rhythm at puja traditions amid social taboos. So here, this is an example of gender fluidity, if we mention this. And also we can talk about the social stigmas that are associated या फिर जो cultural relativism है in this context. क्योंकि यहाँ पर example is कि जो ढाकीज है, तो ढाकीज they play at Durga Pujas और ये predominantly male art form है, क्योंकि जो ढाकीज होती है वो बहुत heavy होती हैं for women to wear and then play. लेकिन अब even the gender participation of women has been increasing. जैसे कि here the examples I mentioned of women. तो West Bengal में we can mention this example कि how they broke the centuries old patriarchal traditions and got into a field which was always considered out of their league. So majorly it is about gender performativity as we read the key term long ago as well. कि कैसे the roles etc. that an individual or perhaps women they are associated with. तो उन gender roles से कैसे they can uplift themselves and include via penetration through such cultural activities or even other means for that matter.
And also Durga Puja received the GI tag in 2021. So it has this UNESCO's recognition under the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. So Durga Puja, it's an annual Hindu festival. It is predominantly celebrated in West Bengal and it honors the goddess Durga and celebrates her victory over the demon Mahisasur.
And इसी में festival creation में we can also discuss कि कैसे we can have eco-friendly celebrations or sustainable celebrations via the use of puja, like the idols, etc., that are made from leaves, as we read regarding the example.
And also the pandals which are made, they are also, the theme is based on certain social message as well. So sustainable celebrations, key term. Further, a case of nothing but patent censorship. So now this article is majorly regarding the IT rules. So IT Act आया था 2000 में. So IT rules 2021 में there was amendment made to these rules. So intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code rules. So इसमें there was an introduction of units that are fact check units, FCUs. उनके creation की बात हुई थी that their functioning or their creation will be done by the union government itself. यहाँ पे the challenges के the fact check units they can have several allegations towards the intermediaries या फिर even they can curb and decide कि what is fake and what is misinformation against the central government. तो ये various states में अगर implement होएगी then definitely the free speech the right to free speech that will be hampered. तो इसीलिए this change it was not supported by the बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट. तो की टर्म अगर हम देखते हैं तो सेफ हार्बर, तो ये एक इम्यूनिटी होती है जो कि इंटरमीडिएरीज को मिलती है फ्रॉम लायबिलिटी विच इज इंटीग्रल टू द डिजाइन ऑफ द आईटी एक्ट. तो ये प्रोटेक्ट करता है फ्रॉम बोथ बिजनेसेस एंड द लार्जर पब्लिक्स राइट टू फ्री एक्सप्रेशन इसके लिए. लेकिन फैक्ट चेक यूनिट्स के आने के बाद दिस विल बी लॉस्ट. तो देयरफॉर देयर इज अ चैलेंज. एंड फर्दर अगर हम फ्री स्पीच की बात करते हैं तो आर्टिकल 19(2) ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तो वो इंक्लूड करता है मैटर्स सच एज डिफेमेशन, पब्लिक ऑर्डर, friendly relations with foreign states and security and integrity of India. So apart from all these areas, there are generally areas where these intermediaries or even such digital platforms, digital journalism की जो हम बात करते हैं, तो they are free to express their views. So therefore, this was termed as ultimate arbiter. Central government being the trying to be the ultimate arbiter on what matter of information about its own actions ought to be seen as constituting the truth.
Also, यहाँ पे we can say that the dilemma is between the safe harbor principle versus the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. So in this case, as we say that the safe harbor principle, it is giving a certain kind of immunity from liability to the intermediaries. So in this case, the safe harbor principle should also have reasonable restrictions, because upholding the larger public interest is the main priority. Even when it comes to the fundamental rights also, that is why they are not absolute, they are having reasonable restrictions. And in case of fact check unit, the concerns are related to the definitions, the meaning of, for example, fake news. How are we going to identify that? What are the basis of categorizing an information as disinformation or misinformation and fake news, or how it is considered to be spreading hate speech or it is misleading? So that is one concern, that it is leading to concentration of powers in the hands of fact check unit and also the members of the fact check unit. That is also one of the concerns. So it should be having again members from, for example, government is already a member of it. It can have members from NGO. It can have members from community participation in the form of, for example, different unions which are there.
Yes, and even regarding the composition we can talk about कि कैसे जो फैक्ट चेकिंग यूनिट्स में composition है, it should not be primarily central government led. There should be equal representation of even the state government members and further even the members of the digital board with which we will be discussing them. Next, the net result will be poor doctoral research. The net result will be poor doctoral research. तो नेट जो ये एग्जाम होता है नेशनल एलिजिबिलिटी टेस्ट, तो ये प्राइमरी क्राइटेरिया है करंटली फॉर द पीएचडी एडमिशंस इन इंडिया. So this has caused a significant debate within the academic community. Traditionally, NET has served as a qualifying examination for junior research fellowships in determining the eligibility of the assistant professorships. लेकिन currently ये PhD admissions के लिए भी use हो रहा है. Now here the question is regarding के whether this will hamper the critical thinking and analytical skills जो कि essential है for the doctoral research, because this exam is majorly knowledge based and it checks your recall and क्या memory है and whatever the areas that an individual has studied rather than the application and critical knowledge, because again MCQ based exam भी है so the pattern matters. Here the concern is regarding this creativity and critical thinking itself, कि how the method of assessing for the PhD admissions it should be changed.
So question is that whether the nature of the current examination pattern for particularly NET, the question is raised over its efficacy in identifying true research potential. Are we able to again harness that true research potential of the candidates or not? So it falls short of evaluating that critical thinking element and the analytical skills, which are again essential for a successful doctoral research. And then there are challenges even in the current system itself. For example, there are again, when it comes to disadvantages for the marginalized communities, or we can say the digital divide because it is a computer based examination, or there are again barriers when it comes to accessing the resources which are needed for the for preparation of this examination. So one size fit all approach will not going to work, or it is not going to be so effective and regarding its efficacy also. And then there are again concerns related to leakage also, because leakage of the test papers, even in case of when it is computer based test. So we saw recently also this paper was postponed regarding the same concerns. So in this context, recently we saw that the government has also introduced this law in 2024, the anti-cheating law. and there we'll be talking about its efficacy again after few years of its implementation. How effective has it been in preventing the paper leaks?
And the other areas where we need the revamping in terms of education. So in terms of entry also we were discussing in the same education like colleges and universities, etc. Okay, there should be more focus on the interviews that can actually tap into the personal thoughts of the individual. Okay, what exactly are their orientations toward the world, etc. So better discussion hoega, and they can even realize कि what kind of students are they looking for according to even the subjects that are uh, applied for. तो research proposals पे भी और ज़्यादा focus करना, and even discipline specific tests and even written tests. So these are all the ways that can be conducted for the PhD admissions, which will be much more effective.
Right. So the results or the score shouldn't be the only criteria for the selection. It should be one of the criteria.
So next is China-Vietnam red diplomacy. तो expanding partnerships की यहाँ पे बात हो रही है, and first we can discuss about the term red diplomacy. What does it actually refer to? So red here is in relation with the ideology of communism. कि कैसे कहीं ना कहीं जो countries होती हैं with the same ideologies, they tend to have better ties in different areas, be it education, be it people to people ties, be it infrastructure, trade ties. तो उन सब में तो here red diplomacy refers to the ties that are majorly based on the socialist or communist ideologies. Just even when we discuss about the World War II time, so there also Russia and China, they had pretty much closer ties. If we see even during the Cold War, so that is majorly because of their same communist ideologies. So इधर article में it is mentioned regarding the Vietnam and China. So their comradeship is mutually appreciative and supportive, bearing the territorial contestations. तो expanding partnerships की बात करते हैं तो Vietnam and China they have signed 14 agreements. तो बहुत सारे areas में connectivity and infrastructure to healthcare. China it remained Vietnam's largest import market in the first 7 months of 2024. Or China भी was Vietnam's second largest export market in the same period. So close ties we can see in terms of trade. तो वियतनाम इंडिया की अगर बात करते हैं इंडिया एंड वियतनाम, तो फॉर वियतनाम इंडिया इज अ मोनास्ट्री फॉर रिलीजियस पिलग्रिमेज, और जो बुद्धिस्ट सिविलाइजेशनल कनेक्शंस है, एंड जो चाइना है इट इज अ साइट फॉर आइडियोलॉजिकल पिलग्रिमेज इफ यू टॉक अबाउट इंडिया एंड चाइना. So revitalizing the shared revolutionary history and ideological alliances for strategic collaboration can help to further the relations between India and China. So ये inherent and irritants है. The relation between India and Vietnam is free of any obstacles and characterized by shared ambitions for a prosperous and multipolar Asia. तो Act East policy के अंदर we can further enhance or increase the scope of partnership.
So what can be the challenges for India, particularly when it comes to we are seeing strengthening or collaborative relationship between China and Vietnam? So first we can say would be the stability of the working of ASEAN, because China is not a member of ASEAN. And if it's strengthening relation with Vietnam, so it can have certain repercussions there. Second, we can say again impact on India's Act East policy, because again the communist ideology, as we are seeing that here, the commandership that they are referring to between Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh. So that can be one of the aspects. Then we can say stability of the South China Sea is another concern. Apart from this, recently we are seeing one more new trend as far as again Vietnam is concerned, is that Chinese companies, they are establishing their different companies, manufacturing companies and industrial companies are establishing their bases in Vietnam. So in a way, China is creating this buffer state in Vietnam when it comes to the economic activities. So China already, we are seeing, due to overcapacity, that has created world problems in the sense that it is leading to more of dumping, or this overcapacity and less demand has also led to slumping of the prices in the world market. So that is directly hampering the domestic market players in different countries across the world. So if China is again expanding its capacity in Vietnam, so it can have very again widespread consequences.
Next is regarding Ladakh. What special status is Ladakh seeking? तो which are the other states seeking constitutional safeguards? और जो fifth sixth schedules है, grant areas under them more autonomy. Or why did the British create provisions for excluded and partially excluded areas under the Government of India Act 1935? So asymmetrical federalism, this is the key term that we can pick up from here. तो अभी अगर करंटली बात करें तो प्रोटेस्ट एक्सेट्रा आर गोइंग ऑन टू पेटिशन द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ताकि जो लद्दाख है उसका इंक्लूजन हो सके इन द सिक्स्थ शेड्यूल अमंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, और बाकी जो अदर डिमांड्स है फॉर ऑटोनॉमी टू द रीजन्स, जैसे कि सिमिलर डिमांड्स जो है वो अरुणाचल प्रदेश और मणिपुर में भी राइज हुई है. तो क्या ऐसे रीजन है वी कैन लुक फॉर दैट कि इन दीज एरिया स्पेशली इट इज हैपनिंग, especially with the different terrain, if we can mention. And so asymmetrical federalism. So asymmetrical federalism is where some states and areas they have more autonomy than others. So classical federation like US or Australia is symmetrical federation. लेकिन इंडिया में this is not the case. So history of fifth and sixth schedules. So this is regarding the tribal populations. So how they were never fully subjugated by the earlier Muslim rulers before the British. तो कैसे इंटरवेंशन वगैरह नहीं हुआ था, लेकिन जो इनिशियल ब्रिटिश लॉज थे और फॉरेस्ट पॉलिसीज थी उन्होंने उनकी लाइफ को अफेक्ट करना स्टार्ट करा, जिसकी वजह से वी हैव आल्सो सीन वेरियस रिबेलियन, जैसे संथल रिवोल्ट जो झारखंड बिहार के एरिया में हुआ था, फिर मुंडा रिबेलियन, बस्तर रिबेलियन, कोल रिबेलियन. These are all the examples. So they culminated in the British policy of isolation towards the tribal, and इसलिए exclusion was given to them. So under the Government of India Act 1935, since they are more dependent on the forest, इस वजह से तो फिफ्थ एंड सिक्स शेड्यूल्स जो हैं वो इन्हीं बेसिस पर मॉडल हुए, which allow the partially excluded and excluded areas. तो फिफ्थ शेड्यूल कौन सी जगह पे अप्लाई करता है, जिनको हम बोलते हैं which we officially call the scheduled areas that are declared by the president. और गाइडिंग नॉर्म्स होते हैं इनके, अगेन इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द कंडीशंस. एंड एट प्रेजेंट जो है देयर आर 10 states that have such scheduled areas. So Tribal Advisory Council has, we just now mentioned in the first article itself, with the in the schedule 5th and 6th, all these initiatives are mentioned, like tribal advisory councils, etc. और जो 6th schedule की बात करते हैं तो उनको हम ऑफिशियली ट्राइबल एरियाज बुलाते हैं rather than scheduled areas. ये किन states में है? असम, मेघालय, मिजोरम एंड त्रिपुरा. So 10 such tribal areas are present in these 4 states. और यहाँ पर autonomous district councils that are formed here in these tribal areas. This is the difference between the 5th schedule and 6th schedule. कैसे इसकी हिस्ट्री आई, क्यों इसकी नीड थी. अब जो स्पेशल प्रोविजंस है फॉर द नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न स्टेट्स, तो दे आर अंडर द पार्ट 21 of the constitution, and these are contained in articles 371A Nagaland, 371B Assam, 371C Manipur and 371F Sikkim. फिर जी में वी हैव मिजोरम एंड एच में अरुणाचल प्रदेश. तो ये जो लोकल कस्टमरी लॉज एंड प्रैक्टिसेस हैं with regard to Nagaland and Mizoram. Unke regarding these are there. So mandate committees are for MLAs from tribal areas and hill areas. So again, this is for better autonomy and representation of these sections of the society. अब further reforms की बात हो रही है, that is the autonomy of the fifth and sixth schedule areas, कि ये पेपर पे ज्यादा है rather than actually. So this is the challenge that is here. Similarly, जो ADCs होते हैं, which are the autonomous district councils in tribal areas, they are subject to the approval of the governor of a state. So this is the second point here. When different parties are in power in the center state as well ADC, political differences autonomy को affect करते हैं in these areas. Second is there are numerous ST habitations across the country, both within the 10 states and the fifth schedule and other states, जिनको कि notify नहीं करा गया है scheduled areas. So more inclusion is needed here. So notified as scheduled areas after due diligence. A third is the 125th Constitutional Amendment Bill. तो वो इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था और अभी पेंडिंग है राज्यसभा. क्या एम करता है? मोर फाइनेंशियल, एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्ट टू द एग्जिस्टिंग 10 ADCs, जो कि करेंटली 4 स्टेट्स में है, इन असम, मेघालय, मिजोरम एंड त्रिपुरा. Fourth is Arunachal Pradesh Assembly and Manipur Hill Area Committee for Hill Areas. They have passed a resolution in recent years for their inclusion in the 6th schedule. And similar lines पर ही Ladakh also has the growing demand for its inclusion, ताकि better autonomy मिल सके and protection of the interest of the tribals in these areas. A recognition of the forest rights under the Forest Rights Act 2006. तो again यहाँ पे जो conditions हैं that are supposed to be met, which are mentioned for the inclusion in the schedule 5th and 6th. So if those conditions they will be fulfilled, only then can states like Arunachal Pradesh and Ladakh, union territories like Ladakh, it can get inclusion under the provision.
So we can say that asymmetric federalism has able to strengthen more of cooperative federalism and promote inclusive development. Apart from this, like we have different facts. For example, there was Bhuria Commission, which was appointed in 2002, and it recommended that 40% or more the tribal population, if an area has more than 40% of the tribal population, it should be again categorized as a scheduled area under the 5th schedule. And 5th schedule and 6th schedule, they're under Article 244 of the Constitution, respectively under subclause 1 and subclause 2. Then we also have the PESA Act, which is the Panchayat's Extension to Scheduled Areas Act of 1996. So this empowers the Gram Sabhas, granting them substantial authority through direct democracy, prioritizing local self-governance in particularly the tribal areas. And then we have these tribal advisory councils. So these are advisory in nature. So they advise the governor of the state on matters referred to them for the overall welfare of the tribes. And governor also submits a report every year to the president regarding the administration of the scheduled areas. So we have 5th scheduled areas in which all states. So it is in Himachal Pradesh, it is in Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and then it is in Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. And 6th schedule you have already mentioned, these are only 4 states itself.
Further, the Maria Tales of historic Delhi, a walk through its many forts. So Delhi को हम often बोलते हैं city of tombs, is dotted with forts, each with its unique history. So Red Fort, जो हम बात करते हैं, present in Old Delhi, is the most famous one that comes to our mind. So from Mahmud of Ghazni, Muhammad Ghori, the Mongols, Babur, Nadir Shah, the Marathas to the British. Every conqueror has wanted a piece of the city, which rose again every time it was destroyed. फिर इसमें हम बात कर सकते हैं इवन इन हॉर्स खास से फिरोज शाहजी they built. It is mentioned here as well. The horse cast fort B and other examples are mentioned here. For centuries, a story went that for every coast there was a killa in Delhi. A slight exaggeration, but not much when you add the names of Tughlaqabad, Siri Fort, Killa-e-Rai Pithora, Adilabad, and Kotla Firoz Shah. So, for instance, Lal Killa, from where the Prime Minister addresses the nation for Independence Day, was built in 1648. This is majorly regarding the history. Ustad Hira, Ustad Hamid rejected the rice in a hills and opted to build the fort on the banks of Yamuna.
So apart from these facts, we can discuss more about that why Delhi was important. First is the strategic location because of the geographical advantage. As Delhi's location in northern India, it made a strategic point for controlling the Gangetic Plains and even the northern trade routes. So it acted as a gateway to the rich agricultural lands of the Doabs, which were again considered more fertile, and it connected the northwest frontier to the interior of the Indian subcontinent. That is why it is being called as a gateway. Then also it provided proximity to invasions or more strategic invasions in the sense that its proximity to Khyber Pass made it a front line for the defense and control during the frequent invasions from Central Asia and Afghanistan. Then stating it as a declaring Delhi as a political capital was because of the centralized administration advantage that it provided, and where the sultans and different emperors they ruled over the vast territory, so they could control that. So that is why it was considered as a seat of position. And then as an economic hub in terms of trade and commerce, we saw that it connected India with Central Asia, with Middle East, with the Indian Ocean. So that is why it was important. And also it was an important center of cultural and craftsmanship. So be it textile weaving, be it metalwork or stone carving. Then cultural and religious significance was again very important and intrinsic in terms of flourishing culture. For example, we have landmark constructions like Qutub Minar, Alai Darwaza, Jama Masjid, and religious influence in terms of the development of Sufi Islam, like Sufi saints like Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, they became major figures in medieval time periods. Then military and defense importance, so fortifications and the armies. So in this case, we saw that Delhi was home to some of the most formidable forts and defensive structures, like Tughlaqabad Fort and Purana Killa. And it's made it a stronghold for defending against both internal rebellions and external invasions. So that is why it became a base for expansions for the rulers, and it became a symbol of sovereignty because of all these factors.
So United Nations declared October 2 as this day, International Day of Non-Violence. So Gandhi ji के honor में this was done. The honorific Mahatma was first applied to Gandhi in this country, South Africa. तो यहाँ पे जो apartheid movement था, उसमें he had a crucial role. Apart from Nelson Mandela. In his autobiography, Gandhi said, "It haunted me, and I must have acted. Dash to myself without number." Harish Chandra. So Gandhi briefly returned to India in 1902 to mobilize support for the welfare of Indians in South Africa. This is considered as Gandhi's first major achievement, Champaran Satyagraha. This was in the year 1917, if I'm not wrong. Champaran Satyagraha.
So we can say that 2nd October it marks as a reflection on the power of non-violent resistance and the pursuit of truth in combating injustice. So we saw that International Day of Non-Violence, it reinforces this idea that peaceful actions can bring about significant social and political changes. And however, of late, if we fit this into the current context, for example, the regional wars which are still ongoing. So, war is not going to lead us to anywhere. It is not going to give us desirable results. So, as India, again, we we put forward that diplomacy and dialogue is the best way forward to even maintain peace and restore peace as far as again these regional wars is concerned.
So further, when we talk about nanotechnology, so nano diamonds spun at a billion RPM to test the limits of physics. So fluorescent nano diamonds may be small, लेकिन they pack a bunch enough to reverberate across many industries. तो हाई टेम्परेचर पे और हाई प्रेशर प्रोसेस पे ये बिल्ड होते हैं. FNDs of applications in high resolution imaging, temperature sensing, and correlative microscopy. तो FND is what? Fluorescent nano diamond. तो ये एक मटेरियल है, फ्लोरोसेंट नैनो डायमंड. जैसे हम बात करते हैं लैब ग्रोन डायमंड्स की भी, तो दे आर ऑल्सो लाइक रियल डायमंड्स itself, just that they are created in the artificial conditions, laboratory conditions. So they are stable under light and aren't toxic to living things. So they have many applications in high resolution imaging, microscale temperature sensing, and correlative microscopy. तो बायोलॉजी में कैसे हेल्प होते हैं ये? The scientists they use the fluorescent nanodiamonds to track cells in their progeny over long periods. तो इसमें their application it can be used.
So this development is connected with the chemistry's Nobel Prize last year because that was regarding the quantum dots. So their fluorescence lifespan is greater than 10 nanoseconds, so it is a relatively longer duration, which makes them better than quantum dots. So that is the comparison being stated here. They're more efficient in terms of this. So what is actually definition of fluorescence? So it is a property of some materials to emit light of lower frequency when irradiated with the light of higher frequency. So unlike many other nanoscale materials, these FNDs don't blink when irradiated for a long time. So we need to remember it is related to lower frequency.
And other applications की बात करते हैं, तो since they are sensitive to acceleration electric fields, so they can be used as sensors in many high value industries and strategic centers. तो सेंसर्स के लिए फिर बायोलॉजी में वी हैड जस्ट नाउ रेड के ट्रैकिंग सेल्स एंड देयर प्रोजेनी over the areas, and also to they can be doped to enhance their electrical, magnetic, thermal, and the optical properties. Or macroscopic version of the quantum superposition of electrons. The theoretical और applied दोनों physics में they are important. Further, Brazil's coast eroding faster than ever as Atlantic Ocean advances. तो again rising sea levels की यहाँ बात हो रही है. So it has risen 13 centimeter in the last 30 years around the region of Atafona. Global warming combined with the silting of the Parabia River has contributed to the erosion of this coast. So effects of global warming. So again, we discussed regarding the importance of coral reefs here, and further, obviously, regarding the reducing the change in the global environment, the rising temperatures, greenhouse gases will enhance area, creation of walls on the coastlines, further relocation of the individuals and houses that are present on the coast. These are some of the major areas that we can work upon to lessen the damage.